that we are very, very excited to announce obviously the collaboration between O.P. Jindal Global University, Sonipat, Haryana, and the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, IIT Madras. But the details of the collaboration is more interesting and more important. First of all, I want to give you a background of why we have been able to build this collaboration. This year, the year of 2024, is a very significant year for India. We are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of India. On 26 November 1949, the Constitution of India was adopted. It was an extraordinary effort that lasted more than 2.5 years, and approximately, finally, 300 members of the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution. Now, the last 75 years has been quite an extraordinary journey, and so we at O.P. Jindal Global University felt that it's an appropriate time for us to establish India's first Constitution Museum and the Rights and Freedoms Academy. Now, this is quite interesting because we discovered that India does not have so far a Constitution Museum and a Rights and Freedoms Academy of the kind that the United States has in the form of the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. We recognize that this is a very important opportunity, a historic opportunity, a historic occasion when we can do this. So we embarked on the journey as late as June of this year to establish India's first Constitution Museum. I'm happy to report to you that the last 6 months have been quite an intense effort that involved so many institutions in India and around the world in terms of collection of data, archival information, and both physical and digital information and all of that. I will be sharing with you more information about that as well. But let me talk to you about the objectives of the Constitution Museum. There were 5 important objectives of the Constitution Museum. First, the vision and the purpose of establishing the Constitution Museum essentially was to promote civic education among ordinary people of India. It does not matter whether they are a lawyer or a judge. We want to invest in ideas of civic education, in citizenship, so that people understand and appreciate the history and evolution of the Constitution. The second objective of establishing the Constitution Museum is to democratize the access to Constitution. In some ways, Constitution was historically seen as a document that was confined to the interest of lawyers and judges, that was confined to the interest of law, but we wanted to democratize access to the Constitution, and hence the museum becomes an opportunity for people to understand complex notions of law and Constitution in an easily understandable manner. So there are several installations in the museum which include sculptures and paintings and art forms and a lot of panelings. All those things are essentially put with a view to ensuring that ordinary people are able to connect to the museum. The third objective of the Constitution Museum is to essentially pay tribute to the outstanding 300 members of the Constituent Assembly. I'm sure several of us know that some of the leading figures were part of the Constituent Assembly. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the president of the Constituent Assembly. Pandit Nehru moved the Objectives Resolution, which became the preamble. Sardar Patel played a very significant role in the Constituent Assembly and later became India's first Deputy Prime Minister. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly and hugely credited with the Constitution itself, and later became India's first law minister. And you can add a few more names, including Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad and K.M. Munshi and so many others. But that will give you 10, 15 people or so. But there were 300 members. So for the first time in the history of post-independent India, we have paid tribute to all the 300 members of the Constituent Assembly, and the museum essentially protects and celebrates their legacy and contribution, and that is the third objective of the museum. The fourth objective of the museum is essentially to promote civic discourse surrounding ideas of democracy, rule of law, and the way in which our evolution has transformed the society. In some ways, we have used and we plan to use the museum as an opportunity for engagement intellectually and otherwise, where the museum goers have an opportunity to be part of the academic institution itself. There is something quite significant about the fact that this museum has been built in a university space where ideas are constantly generated. And the last objective of the museum essentially is to recognize the 75 years of the history of the evolution of the Constitution and the rights and freedoms. After the Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949, we have a rich tapestry of events, including the functioning of our democratic institutions, including the courts, the legislation, the parliament, the various debates, the various amendments to the Constitution. All of that is being recorded and presented in a manner that people can understand and appreciate the history as well. These were the 5 objectives on the basis of which we embarked on the journey of establishing India's first Constitution Museum. Another aspect of this whole effort is also to recognize that the Constitution is such a founding and a foundational document that everybody has a stake in it. And how do we build that stakeholdership? The only way by which we can build the stakeholdership is to involve people in developing deeper understanding of the Constitution.
Thank you, Professor Rajkumar. Constitution is not merely a lawyer's document. It is the spirit of a vehicle that is there, that shall survive for the ages together. Also, similar to that was what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's quote on Constitution was. It makes a lot of pleasure to collaborate with the Jindal Global University on a very interesting endeavor of having a Constitution Museum. Generally, museum is looked down upon as a place that you go, but museum is a place to look up for various things that are there. So beautifully he had summarized the reason and the rationale of how this first Constitution Museum in independent India after 75 years is getting inaugurated at the Institute of Eminence, Jindal Global University. Around here, he had popped a question of a technology collaboration or something that can be brought up. And in that endeavor is this collaborative approach. Like the Constitution was put by this baby country with a bunch of lawyers and an excellent members of the Constituent Assembly who got together, tried to put a framework of rules under which this nation could progress and reach where we are. Symbolic to that is this collaborative effort, not of professors or faculty and other things, but bunch of students, people as said before, from the Jindal's School of Art and Architecture and Fine Arts, the BFA students and others, who came up with external design. And the technical part of it was from the IBOT, the Center for Innovation at C5 at IIT Madras. We had, our students had put together various aspects like a large language model, bring the AI into it, and aspects of it that are new in terms of what can be done. Constitution again was not a perfect document on the day one, and that is something that is always improved and amended to be something of relevance and a guiding framework for all of us. Likewise, this robo is something that is being put together, probably evolving with the large language models and other things that are there, but also be a guide to a large body of people that are going to be viewing these evolution of this constitution through this technological aspect that could be there as a museum point. Now there are many firsts. I mean, friend Professor Paddy will talk about it in more in detail. What I wanted to bring across are three essential points that we want to.
This is actually a very special moment for us. You know, we talk a lot about humanoids, tour guide bots, but when you look at the Indian ecosystem, you know, we do have a lot of museums. It's not that we don't have museums in India, but normally these places are visited by human beings, and therefore we never thought how technology or robot can actually play a very important role. So I am very happy to report that this is actually India's first tour guide robot, you know, that is actually built to assist people, give them tour, and it was not easy, because whenever you go to a museum, there will be, you know, many exhibits, right? It's not that people are going to go and see one photo or one video or one picture or one art or one mural or one activity. It is going to be multiple activities. So it is very easy for a human being to go stand there and explain what these activities are. But if you have to conceive this to be done through a bot, it is not easy, you know, because you have to not only feed the required information to the bot, but also empower the bot to have information that it can actually interface with the real world, sometimes the internet, and get extra information, because human beings can ask any question, right? So it was very, very challenging. So as far as the exhibits, the research, the information, I think we have to congratulate the students, you know, who thought through this, because when a human being is giving a tour, it's very easy. You know, you talk about this, whatever you know, you can say and get out. But how do you make a robot actually, give a tour about this exhibit was a very, very challenging thing. You know, so first tick is we have conceptualized India's first tour guide robot, and this is going to be the start. This is just going to be the beginning, because I strongly feel that in years to come, these spaces can be occupied by robots, and they might even do a better job in terms of giving guide or not discriminating between people. You know, what human beings do is, we have an interested person, we have a very stalwart, we may spend more time, but robot will not make that distinction or discrimination. So that is why robot coming into these spaces is going to be more meaningful and more creative for the future. The second is, it's very, very interesting. You know, when you create a robot outside India, you normally are testing the robot on one language scheme. But India is very diversified. You have people coming from different parts of country, and they may want to ask the bot to prepare itself in multiple languages. That is a very, very difficult challenge. One is content to be prepared in English, and also content to be prepared in multiple languages. So I'm very happy to report that in the first phase, this bot is going to be multilingual, both Hindi and English. It can speak, it can take guides, it can guide the visitors on these two languages. I think that's another very interesting point that I wanted to mention. And the last point I will mention, and I'll pass it on to Anju for Q&A, is there are very three unique things about this bot. You know,
Announced the extraordinary collaboration between OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat, Haryana, which is an institution of eminence recognized by the Government of India, and the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, which is also an institution of eminence. This collaboration is part of an effort that we have undertaken at Jindal Global University. We are establishing India's first Constitution Museum, which will be inaugurated in the next few days as a mark of commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of India. On 26 November 1949, we adopted the Constitution, and this year we are celebrating the 75th anniversary. But we also thought that we should do something unique, recognizing the extraordinary evolution of Indian Constitution, but also India's commitment to both tradition and modernity. So what we thought was we should, while we are building this museum, which is more a traditional, historical, and very much in terms of collecting our history, we thought we should do something quite modern in it. And that's how we collaborated with the IIT Madras, where we have today launched India's first robotic museum tour guide. This robotic museum tour guide, which is called Samvid, which is the Samvidhan word is about the constitution. So we are calling this robot as Samvid. That has been created by a very fantastic collaboration, largely led by the IIT Madras students who specialize in robotics, with the students of OP Jindal Global University who help them on the design side. This effort is the IIT Madras students' effort, where they have been able to create Samvid. This will be a tour guide in the Constitution Museum. We are very delighted that we've been able to launch the robot here in the city of Chennai.